Now, just a little warning before we begin. There will be major spoilers in this video for the Sandman series on Netflix. So, if you haven't seen the whole thing and you don't want anything ruined, it is a really good time to click away.
And to go watch it.
Spoiler alert for your feelings towards it, it seems then, huh?
What? You go watch it if it's bad. We told people to go watch Morbius.
But that's so bad it's good, right? It's one of those.
B-movie.
So does that mean you think Sandman is so bad that it's good?
No, I think it's excellent.
Okay.
Which I know you do too, so...
I do think it's excellent, yeah. And before we get into it, you have read the comics?
I
have not, so...
I haven't finished reading all of them, but I have read everything that's covered in the first season. Possibly the only season. You know, Netflix is struggling.
I heard that...
It's $15 million an episode for this series, which definitely shows the quality is very, very good.
It is maybe the best looking series I've ever seen. Television series or streaming series, whatever you want to call it. It looks fantastic. I mean, the special effects, the CGI is all top. It's movie quality.
It really
is really good.
It's very, very key that it's great quality for this. Fantasy series is, you know, sometimes you need that little extra. I mean, the story in this is great, but then they added in the fantastic visuals.
And the story is great, but I found it a little interesting that it's kind of episodic. It's not necessarily like one, you know, that seems to be all the rage today is to just do a long story, a long format story, which I think most people like. I like. It is that, but it's also each individual episode kind of does feel like an episode.
Or a comic book?
Or a comic book, or a story arc in a comic book.
That's what you get when you get the actual writer of the source material involved in the project. Because Neil Gaiman was there.
Yeah, I think it shows. I mean, again, haven't read it, but definitely from everything I know of Sandman, everything you've told me too, this felt like the comics. Mm-hmm. It felt like a comic book too. You could kind of, I mean, other than, as you told me, there's a lot of other DC characters, you know, in the. Yeah. So because you told me that going into it, I'm like, well, I don't think we're going to be seeing Batman in this thing.
Yeah.
Or Hawkman, I think you said was also in the. But anyway, so that all gets excluded out, but everything else, apparently, according to you, is pretty on point.
And a couple of the changes they did make, I appreciated, because I know we're deep diving into it now. One of the three nightmares dreams that escaped, Galt, did not exist in the comics. Galt was actually two nightmares who did a very similar thing, except they made it that Hector Hall thought he was the Sandman, not the child thinking he was the Sandman. But they did exactly the same thing that Galt was doing, except they weren't really doing it to protect anyone, whereas Galt was trying to help protect the child in her own way. And she was trying to change and become a dream. She didn't want to be a nightmare. The other two had no such inclination. They were just doing what they were doing, kind of making their own little world because they didn't know if their master would come back. I appreciated the change, the addition of Galt over the other two more comical guys. I thought it was a nice tone, a sentiment about how things can change. That maybe even to some people, a nightmare is a good dream.
Could be, I suppose.
One man's nightmare
is another man's pleasant dream?
Could be.
I guess so. Some people like to be scared and terrified.
Well, no, think about it. Let's say you're terrified of water and the dream is constantly like you floundering around in a swimming pool, and another person's like, I love to swim.
I hope you're terrified of bodies of water, not just water
Or
itself.
Someone who's afraid of heights constantly being given the dream of standing on top of a mountain. Somebody else might really like that. It's perspective, point of view. But like some of the changes, like the gender flip with Lucienne and the race change, doesn't matter. Same with Unity. Doesn't matter. It was weird that they seemed to change the time thing a little bit, because Unity kept referring to... Rose was referring to Unity as her great-grandmother in the comics. She's just her grandmother. The time is a little bit... Well, I mean, timing is different.
These comics were written almost 30 years ago, I want to say, at this point. If I'm remembering right. So it's, obviously, and they're written in the present tense of when they're...
Right, so they had to have more years pass.
Yeah, so it has to be, you had to add some time, and things probably had to be stretched or compressed or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine that was too much of an issue.
Like I said, I didn't have any qualms really with the changes. They did change John Dee's character a little bit. You remember John D., the holder of the ruby? The only thing they changed is I think they gave him a better motivation. His motivation was, I don't want anyone to tell lies. You don't tell the lies you tell to yourself, the little white lies you spare people with, society's lies. No more lies. Lies are gone, and you saw what happened. When nobody can even hide from their own dreams, I guess, because they're technically lies, crazy stuff happens, everything broke apart. Well, he doesn't really have much his motivations in the comic book were really, like, bizarre. It was just, I want to be, like, the god, the ruler of the world, and I'll start at this little diner.
I mean, that's not an odd
make them do this, and make them behave this way, and make them behave this way.
I don't know if that's an odd motivation. I think a lot of people have
but
God
it's different, and it's just...
I know what you're saying.
I think I much appreciated that they gave him a new direction.
Well, I mean, the episode was kind of a strange, because of all the episodes, it feels the most kind of out of place in a way, because it just really has nothing to do with, Dream or anything. I mean, he's there, don't get me wrong, but it was just so, like, this is kind of this one, felt like a Twilight Zone episode or something, you know what I mean, where it's just like this one-off kind of in a diner. All the other context didn't necessarily even have to matter, per se. You could have just watched that and been like, oh, that's kind of a fascinating little commentary about how we do lie constantly, but lies can be a good thing, I suppose. Not necessarily lying to yourself, but the little white lies of just being kind. When she calls, the waitress calls him hun or whatever she calls,
he's like, well, you really don't find me attractive, right?
Yeah, I mean, and they do that all the time because that's just a way to kind of make you feel comfortable and make you feel appreciated. It's these little things that you do and you don't necessarily even think about. I'm sure the waitress doesn't even necessarily think about the fact that...
Well, and she was also lying to herself in the fact that she's dreaming of being a writer. And she writes her little stories and writes happy endings for people. Back of her mind somewhere, she knows she's not really a writer.
Well,
it is a small lie she's telling to herself that she could be a great writer someday.
Okay, well, you can lie to yourself.
He stripped that away from her.
Anybody can be a writer. You just have to put some words on a paper or type them on a keyboard or whatever. I mean, then you're a writer. Congratulations.
But she obviously didn't believe it.
A well-renowned and famous author, of course, is a little different. But anybody can write.
Right, but she also obviously didn't really believe that and must have considered it a lie because he took it from her.
Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing how good we are at lying to ourselves. I think that's another thing the episode kind of touched on. We are really...
Absolutely.
You would think the one person you cannot lie to would be yourself, and yet we're all experts at it.
What did you think about his trip to hell?
I thought that was one of my favorite episodes. Gwendolyn Christie...
Oh, she's
good. There's something about her subtlety of... You just... I don't know. Some actors have it, some don't, where there's just that feeling of... You don't want to piss them off. Like they seem like they're just always on this edge of.
You're waiting for that politeness to.
Yes, you can see the veneer of being polite and civil is just a veneer. If it falls away, you can tell that she'd be the literal devil as she was in the episode.
No, I enjoyed the trip to hell. The nuance of how they did that. I was a little disappointed they didn't get the actor from the Lucifer Netflix show to continue playing Lucifer. But I'm very happy with Christie. I can't complain.
I've never seen that show, so I know you were a huge fan of it. I did not watch it. And so I was more than happy with Gwendolyn Christie's portrayal. I thought that was one of the better episodes. I like just every... And another thing about it is it's kind of like... I appreciate the fact that it's another kind of story that just throws you into things and doesn't feel the need to explain everything or to dumb down the story or water things down because they... feel like their audience is just idiots who can't grasp things. And, I like that. I like when there feels like a totally rich universe and there's all this lore. And I was constantly asking you questions about like, well, how does this work? And that's the thing a lot of shows I think fail at. I don't really care about your world. Yes, you obviously have to care about the characters too to make a good story work. But there's so many things I watch lately and, I'm like, I watch it and I'm like, I'm trying to think of an example without perhaps... Wheel of Time was something I didn't actually care about the world. We watched the first few episodes, and mind you, I read the first book years ago, and I thought it was pretty good, and just never kept reading them. And I watched it, and I'm like, I really don't care about this world. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't hook me. It didn't draw me in yet. There's probably people in the comments like, oh my God, Thor, you didn't like Wheel of Time, but I don't know what it was. But this drew me in. I was really curious to know more about the lore and how this all worked. And who these endless are and why they're all brother and sister and what the hell is going on here.
Well, what was clever is they did propel you into modern times, so we know our world. the only world we're trying to learn is how their world almost affects our world.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the little story arc, his friend.
Oh, that was another one of the really, really good episodes.
Well, yeah, they combined it with the story about Death doing her job, which was beautifully told.
I mean, most of the episodes were, again, they were it was very episodic, which I think is something we lack a lot of the times in Netflix series and stuff. You know, especially Netflix can get away with it because they'll put them all up there at once, so you don't necessarily even have to reflect on the fact that you watched one episode. You're just watching a piece of this bigger story, and you don't even think about them as episodes. But this actually made me think like, well, these do feel very episodic. They do have a little story within a greater story, and I really like that. And the one with Death was also, you know, very kind of profound, very, and the one with the guy who lives forever. I like that the Dream didn't realize that most human beings would prefer misery over death. I mean, that's kind of one of the messages I got out of it. You know, like, you would rather live the ups and downs of life, whether they be, you know, he had his good times, he had his bad times, but most people would prefer to suffer than cease to exist, if you will.
Right. It was, again, really good. I like how much of the dialogue literally comes directly from the comic books. So much of the dialogue, I'm like, that's like word for word what they say in the comic books. I mean, you can't get more true your source material than that.
No, I will take your word for it. Mm-hmm. And I like that the two become friends. I like that he realizes at the end, like, I have a friend that I see every 100 years or so, but...
It's crazy considering what had happened to him. I mean, he was trapped for years by a human, and he had a lot of resentment coming out of that. And then he realizes after all that resentment, after all that anger, that he still has a friend in humanity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's, you know, the classic thing. You can't just judge you can't look at one example and judge, you know, everybody who looks like them, you can't judge every human being because one, you know, was an asshole. Let's put it that way.
What about the Corinthian? What do you think of him?
He was weird. I liked him. Don't get me wrong. The whole with him being the, you know, with the murderer, the serial killer conference and the serial, you know,
convention.
It was all kind of strange. I don't think it was bad. I liked it, but it was.
That's all in the comic. Yeah.
It's strange to say that was the one that I'm like, well, this one kind of feels really odd considering some of the other things and stories and themes you get in this and just concepts in general. But that was the one I'm like, it's really kind of strange. I mean, did the serial killers really do that?
I do like how much more of a story they told with him this time. In the comic books, he's around, but a lot of things just feel like contrivances. Like,
oh yeah, you were.
Like I was telling you in the comics, Rose ends up at that convention because like their car breaks down. Her and Fiddler Green's car break down as they're going to continue looking for her brother. Her brother Jeb just like happens to get kidnapped by the Corinthian. Corinthian didn't go there and get rid of the foster parents and then kidnap him. He just managed somehow to snag him and have him in the trunk. He never even took him out of the car. Just kept him in the trunk.
Didn't get him his own room.
Fiddler's Green happened to hear him in the trunk. There was a lot of coincidence. Like I said, he never called Rose there.
I feel like that happens a lot in
That just happened to find him there. I liked how they gave Corinthian much more of a story by putting him behind the scenes of a lot of the things that were happening.
Well, I mean, in comic books, it's a very hard medium to have very complex and intricate storytelling. At times, because you're using panels and words and.
Well, and these thoughts may have even come to Gaiman way later.
Yeah, I mean, he might have wanted to do that initially, but as I'm saying, realize just trying to convey this and to complicate this is going to not be worth the effort. Mm-hmm. Or as you said, I'm sure having written it all those years ago, I'm sure other ideas and things to tweak and fix and add, and yeah, I'm sure that's all come to him in that time. I mean, George Lucas is the one who, kind of famously said, and it's not a direct quote, but you never finish, art, you never finish your movie, you just finally release it. and well, he kind of proved he wants to go back and fix some things in it and put the special editions, but no, I'm sure, and as someone who's, I've done my fan fictions, which I've released out there to the world, and not that I'm on the par with any of these guys, but you do have those like, oh, I wish I would have put that there, or I wish that could have been a little better. So I can relate to that in my own small way.
I do like how much of the comic book made it in. Little things that I was like, they're not going to include. Yeah, they included it. And there were so many threads they left for a next season.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you've got Desire, who still wants to get their revenge.
Desire, yeah.
No, we did not see much of the siblings. They kind of pop in and out. I mean, the story is kind of centered around the Morpheus dream. Though there is a lot of offshoots in the comic books, a lot of small stories that make their ways in and out.
Yeah, Desire was an interesting character, but I didn't feel like they were the one behind it. It's kind of like, and I know it's probably different in the comics and all that, but it didn't feel like they were actually like trying to manipulate things. It was kind of like all tacked on, like, oh yes, by the way, it was me. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how
they were trying to manipulate things. They wanted you to see that they could do that, but maybe they could have emphasized a little harder what kind of ramifications would there be if you kill a member of the family.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really, like I said, I don't think it was bad because it didn't get fleshed out more. I didn't understand, Desire's motivations and all these things. It kind of felt like, oh, by the way, it was me. And it's like, oh, okay, why? And what does this mean? And
why were you trying to get me to kill one of your offspring?
Yeah. Right. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm sure there's probably more to it or could be more to it. And we'll see it maybe into season 2. But right now I'm like, okay, you're the one doing it. That's great.
How did you think of what did you think of the 2 additional stories that they came out with? The cat story, and we'll start with the cat story. What do you think of
that? Interesting. I mean, I kind of find it funny that you're implying that cats could never like cooperate. You couldn't even find 1,000 cats in the whole world to cooperate with each other. The old saying, it's like herding cats is kind of what I kept going through my mind while watching it.
You can only herd cats if you're carrying a bag of treats.
Yeah, we can herd cats here with treats. They will follow and come running if you shake the treat container. But no, I mean it was good. I don't know that I was like awed and wowed by it. I'm like, if this was considered to be put into the series as just a natural in there, I'm like, okay, I kind of understand why it wasn't.
Right. I mean, they did. That story is from the comic again. It's interesting the concept they put forth that you can dream things into reality. I don't know if there's enough force to it, I guess, or enough dreamers all believe the same thing. It could happen. He said there's a spot later in the comics where he's talking to like the Egyptian god with the cat face. I can't remember her name right now. And she makes a comment to him in passing that she liked him better as a cat. Meaning there's a lot of credence to the story that the cat story told, that maybe cats at one time did rule the world with humans as their playthings.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Very intriguing.
They'd like to rule it again with humans as their playthings.
And what do you think of the story of Calliope?
I thought that one was really good. I could have seen that one being inserted into the series.
It's hard when they make it these arcs, though, to insert something that's a standalone in the middle.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I like that story. Again, that one's from the comics.
Yeah, the desperation to, when you create something and you don't know what to do next. I mean, I think that's the fear of any kind of writer or creator who gains any kind of notoriety or fame, that you've put something out there and everybody, how many musical artists have, are one-hit wonders. That's got to just be... Mm-hmm. You put something out there, the whole world falls in love with it, and what do you do next? How do you follow that up? And I think for a lot of people, it's next to impossible, and I think they become their own worst enemy with writer's block and just thinking too hard, and then you go to insane lengths to recapture that same sort of magic, as we see in the episode where he basically imprisons his muse there.
I'm assuming they're going to come back to this story. Remember when Morpheus was traveling to hell and a woman reached out to him?
Yeah.
That is an arc that should come in the next season.
Okay.
They just didn't do the little mini story yet that explains who she is. So
that's fine. I do not mind at all when they do that, when they kind of give you something to like, well, what was that? And then never come back. I mean, usually when you're making a movie or a story, if something weird and out of place seems to happen, it'll come back later and be important. That's, foreshadowing and all of that. But I'm fine when you do something like that. When you put something in and you make it think and then nothing comes of it, but maybe later down the road something will come of it.
I thought they did a good job explaining what the vortex was. Rose the vortex?
Yeah. At first I had no idea what in the world.
Like, what's a vortex?
Yeah, why do you call it a vortex, too? Such a strange name for like a a person. Because you think of a vortex as like a, an abnormality in space, if you will.
Well, I have one interesting story to share about the beloved writer, Neil Gaiman, before we go on to rating.
Oh, okay.
Did you know he actually sabotaged one of the old Sandman movie attempts? So John Peters was going to make a Sandman movie in like 1999? Something like that? I don't know. It was early. And they sent him the script because they wanted to know what he thought of it, as the creator.
Sure.
Send him the script and go, hey, here you go. I want you to read this. And then when they called him back to ask him if he read it, he was like, yeah, I did. I haven't read all of it, but I've read enough. And they're like, oh, so pretty good, right? And he's like, no, it really isn't. Come on. And they're like, come on, there must have been something in there you loved. And he said, nothing in there I loved. There was nothing in there I liked. It was the worst script that I've read by anybody. It's not just the worst Sandman script. It was the worst script I've ever been sent.
Tell us how you really feel.
Apparently, these are some of the stories that were in this script, because he says these are some really stupid ideas that were in the script. He said it had giant mechanical spiders in it. Lucifer, Morpheus, and the Corinthian were identical triplets. They were a family of identical brothers, and it was all a race to see who could get the ruby, the helm, and the bag of sand before midnight on 1999, before the new millennium started, because whoever got it would be the winner. That was the plot.
The winner of what?
Don't know. So he said before the movie could go any further, he anonymously leaked the script to Ain't It Cool News, which back then was read by people.
Wow, Ain't It Cool News existed back then.
And yeah, they received it anonymously and wrote an article about how horrible it was. Yeah. So then John Peters went on to make Wild Wild West.
And the world lost nothing.
No. That story, especially after what we received, was, oh my goodness.
Yeah, Wild Wild West was, yep.
He got his mechanical stuff, I guess.
Yeah, he did get goodness gracious. Wasn't there like a mechanical spider-like thing in there?
I think so.
There was some big mechanical I've only seen it once, and that was a long time ago.
Because it's one of those movies you really don't need to
Yeah, it's one of those movies you kind of remove from your brain until someone makes a joke about it, because that's usually the only context it gets referred to in.
I do hope that this review gets more people to watch The Sandman. I really want there to be a season 2. It deserves one. A lot of series, you're like, it'll be okay at one.
Yeah.
This one is something, this series is something special. It's something that as people who watch fantasy, sci-fi series and stuff, it's such a fresh idea. It's I know it's actually an old idea, but it is a very fresh, true to source, joy to watch program.
Yeah, it was different. It was very different, very fantastic without, integrated into the modern world fairly well, pretty well.
And I'm just going to say, the actor who played Dream, Morpheus, for such a, I guess I'll put it this way, wisp, slender, non-imposing looking fellow, he had such a presence.
Yeah, like
it was amazing.
Same again, it goes along with the Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer. There's just some actors have it and some don't. Some can play, not necessarily. He's not a villain, but some can play that more mysterious characters extremely well, and some just
the
they fall flat.
Expression, everything he had going on, and so many of the visuals of the show were directly from the art in the book, which is cool.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Moving on to the Hammer scale, which you always rate first, 1 out of 10.
Why do I always rate first?
Because you're Thor.
1 to 10.
Because after they hear your rating, they can just click away.
Jeez. Yeah, they listen for like 25 minutes only to hear my rating. We can't listen another 10 seconds to know what Naboo rated it. So anywhere between...
A 1 and a 10.
Anywhere.
Season 1.
I'm going to go...
Including the final 2 episodes that were added.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go 9.25.
Why do you have to get really specific?
I don't want to get I feel like 9.5 is like perfect but not perfect rating, and I don't think it quite deserves that high of a rating yet. I think 9 feels too low. I actually really enjoyed this series. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it, but I don't know. 9.5 would be like, I feel like this is near perfect. Wow. And I don't know that it was like
You're so weird.
Right there.
A 10 is perfect.
No, a 10 is like the best thing I've ever seen. Like I couldn't think.
No, a 10 is perfect.
A 10 is like watching it and like, this changed my life. I can't think of a flaw. For me, 10 is just, it's the epitome. I don't know that anything can achieve a 10.
I think there are things that could achieve a 10.
Yeah, in theory, and maybe one or two
I
things
think
in
if
my
I looked at my
lifetime will.
movie shelf, I'd probably find a couple 10s on there.
Maybe.
Flash
I'm just saying.
Gordon.
I want to reserve that. When you say 10, that's like there are very few of these that will ever exist in the world.
Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings wouldn't get a 10?
9.9.
Wow.
He made some changes that I will always be like, I don't like those changes. He loses a tenth of a point just for Sam abandoning Frodo at one point. Never, ever, ever would he do that, no matter what. And I understand the tension and the drama he went for. I get that. I get the decision. That doesn't mean I love the decision.
You're weird.
Well,
I would give it a 9.75 then.
All right, then.
I'll give it a 9.
Why don't you give it a 10?
I'm going to give it a 9.5. Because
Okay.
I'm not doing quarter points.
I don't want to do quarter points either, but
It's whole or half points. There's no quarter
I'm going
points.
quarter point. I'm breaking all the rules.
You only get to break all the rules once, so you don't get to give out quarter points ever again.
We'll see.
No.
If it has to be done, it has to be done.
No, I'm giving it a 9.5.
Okay.
I think aesthetically they should have gone with a... Corinthian doesn't have regular human teeth for his eyes. He has sharp, pointy things, which would make him more terrifying.
But he was, attractive to so many.
Well, yeah, with his glasses on.
Well, yeah, with the glasses on, but I mean,
His
it seemed like...
regular mouth was regular teeth, and his eyeballs are sharp and pointy.
Okay. I'm confused what you were saying, I guess.
They didn't have sharp, pointy teeth in his eyes.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant he should have sharp, pointy teeth in his mouth. I was like, well, then I don't
No,
know that
just in
anybody
his
would
eye
find him
mouths.
attractive. His eye mouths. All right, fair enough. No, 9.25.
It's very close to a 10 for me.
Ooh.
Very close.
So why isn't it a 10?
I already told you one thing.
Okay.
There was some minor stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got for you this time, so take to the comments below. Give us your score for Sandman. Tell us, do you agree with us? Is it extremely good, or maybe you feel differently? Maybe you weren't impressed. Whatever the case may be, let's talk some Sandman. And until next time, DC. And until next time, thanks for watching.